Okay, today's daf Be'ezras Hashem is daf Memvav. We're going to start from about 7 lines from the top, but before we start the daf, just go through the psukim. So let's make it big. And here we are. This is in Parshas Kiseitse. We're going to read it very shortly. Perek Chav Beis, Pasuk Yud Gimel. Okay, so here we are. Let me just get my pointer. Here the Torah describes a certain scenario. Ki yikach ish isha. If a man takes a lady, he was makadosh her and he went to the chuppah, uba alel. Now, pashit, simple meanings, uba alel means he has relations with her. But we're going to learn that the Rabbanan don't necessarily need him to have actually relations with her. Uba alel means, according to the way we're going to learn, the way the Rabbanan are going to learn this pasuk means that he came up with a libel against her. He didn't sleep with her yet. He went to the wedding. They had this beautiful wedding. The next day, he doesn't want to, have relations with her. He just wants to come up with a libel against her because he wants to get out of this marriage. And because he hates her. And since he's doing the aveira of hating a person, so now he's going to lead to another aveira. So what's the other aveira? V'sam la alilais davarim. He came up with a whole big made-up story. V'hoitzi oileha shem ra, and he gave her a bad name. Why? Remember, they used to do the kedushin months before they actually went to the marriage. So they were betrothed long before, months before he actually went to the marriage. So this is what this guy did. He wants to get out of this marriage. V'amar, and he says, "Esi isha zois lekachti." This woman I married, right? I took her as a wife. And I got to get to know her. And in my conversations with her, means I got to know her. I understood that she was mizana, while in between the betrothal and the marriage, she had znus with somebody else. And I found witnesses for that. And I did not find other witnesses that could prove that she did not have znus. Okay? So then the pasuk says, so now who's in trouble over here? Who's going to protect her? V'lokach avi hanar. She's a 12-year-old girl, by the way. V'lokach avi hanar v'ima. The mother and the father should take her. That means they take the matters into their own hands. And v'hitziu es besulei nara. And what does that mean? They found other witnesses that prove that she's still a virgin. How do they prove that she's a virgin? Because they said that those witnesses that the husband brought are false, because that they couldn't have made a testimony that she was Mazana, because they were with us at that time. So they proved the husband's witnesses are false. And the parents found these other witnesses that were Mazim, the witnesses of the husband, and they bring it al ziknei ha'ir hashara, to the ziknei ha'ir is what? The judges, hashara, that are in the court. V'amar, and now this is what the Torah says. Avi hanara el hazakenim. The father of the girl says to the judges, as biti nasati li'isha, I gave this daughter to this man, li'isha, to be my wife, I guess my son-in-law. My daughter should be his wife. And he hated her. The and now who samla alilas devarim? He came up with this made-up story. Lemar lematzas lebitcha besulim. I did not find for your daughter that she's a virgin. I found that she was mizana before I got married to her. But he says, the parents say, the eila besule biti. This is proof that our daughter did not have relations, because we proved his witness is false. Uparsu hasimla lifnei haziknei, and they spread out the I guess the bia cloth in front of the people, in front of the shoftim. Now he didn't have relations with her, so they're not going to look at a cloth with no blood on it or with blood. It doesn't matter. He's saying I never had slept with her. That's what the husband is saying. But what they're saying is that they should clarify it like you clarify a cloth, to make something very clear. They'll find out who's telling the truth. Is it the husband's witnesses or the parents' witnesses? And if they find out that it was really the husband's witnesses are false, What does it say? They take this man, the Yisru Oisai. What does the Yisru Oisai mean? They should flog him. They give him malchus. We don't know what this means. Yisru means to punish him, but we know it means malchus. V'onshu Oisai, and not only that, normally when you get whipped, you don't have to pay any money. Here, v'onshu Oisai mea kasef, they're requiring him to pay 100 silvers, v'nosnu la'avia nara, and he has to pay the father of this nara, because he took the brunt of this insult. Because he put a bad name on a Jewish girl to say that she did znus. And that not only that husband, that has to be his wife. He cannot get rid of her. No matter what, he cannot give her a get. One more point. If it was true that the girl was not a virgin, in other words, the Edom of the husband are correct, and that she actually did znus after she was engaged to this man while she was in her father's house waiting to get married, then they take the girl to the father's house, to where she grew up, and they threw her off the roof of her father's house, and they stone her with stones. V'meisa, she should die. She did some despicable act to amongst the Jewish people, liznois, to have relations beisavia while she's in her father's house, engaged to somebody else. And by doing that, you get rid of this evil girl from your midst. So I hope you followed that story. And now let's do the Gemara. So now everything will be, the whole Gemara is going to be 1, 2, 3, very simple. Okay? Tanu Rabbanan, rabbis taught, v'anshu oisai, you punish the guy, okay? He's the one that came up with this made-up story, the husband. Zeh moment, you make him pay money, which we saw is 100 shkalim. The Yisroi, so not only that, what you have to punish him. Zeh malchus, you give him malchus. You have to give him a flogging. Bishlama ba'anshu zeh moment, I understand that the words punishment means money. Because the Chumash says, that you punish this guy 100 silvers, and he has to give it to the father of the girl. How do you know the Yisru means that you give him what? You give him malchus. How do I know? Rababo said, Lamadnu Yisru mi Yisru. The pasuk says v'Yisru, and you learn it from the Yisru mi ben umi ben mi ben. V'hoya im ben hakos rasha. So the pasuk, it's a funny type of gezer shava, but basically you're learning the Yisru oisai by, it says by Hoitzi Shemra, to the Yisru oisai where it says by a ben Sarah Mara, and it says the word ben over there. So it's almost as if we say the word ben over here, right? You see this word the Yisru oisai. The Yisru oisai. What does it say? The Yisru oisai right over here. We almost imagine that there's a word ben over here. Imagine that there's a word ben somewhere there, because we make Gzeir Shava where another time the Chumash says v'Yisru and it says the word ben, and then now you have a Gzeir Shava v'hoya and ben hakos rasha ben. There's a Gzeir Shava that tells you that the word ben means give malchus. So now we know that this guy, this husband who came up with malchus, now has to that came up with the baloney story. He has to get malchus and pay 100 silver coins. Now, how do I know you're not allowed to come up with a phony story against somebody else? How do you know? How do I know now that I come up with a bad name against somebody? You're not allowed to make up a story. So the Gemara, the Torah says you're not allowed to be a talebearer. You're not allowed to come up with false stories like a peddler. Peddler is always peddling, fake stories around. So fake news, you're not allowed to do that. That's one of the law. Rab Nosson says, Mi nishmarteh mikol davara. You have to be careful. Davar means with bad speech. He learns that the word davar means a bad speech. So he learns it from another pasuk. So the Gemara asks the question, Rab Lazar, who learned it from Selech Rachel, my tamala oma mahai. Why didn't he use the pasuk of nishmarteh mikol davara? It says to be careful from any bad speech. So listen to this. He needs the pasuk that you should watch any bad thing. He needs it for the teaching of Rav Pinchas ben Yair. The nishmata mikol davara. The Torah says, be careful of any bad things. What does that mean? It doesn't mean bad speech. It means bad thoughts. It means salacious thoughts. The Kan Omer Rav Pinchas ben Yair. Rav Pinchas ben Yair said, Al yaharer odam bayom. A person's not allowed to have these salacious thoughts in his mind during the daytime, because v'yovei l'day tuma b'layla may come him to release semen at night. So he's going to release for no reason. So therefore, there is the isser to have these thoughts enter your head, which basically means this is, if someone were to ask you, where's there the Torah say that a person should not go on an adult website? So this is the pasuk, v'nishmarta mikol davara, because you have to watch what your thoughts enter your head, and because this could lead to a trauma at night. So there's the isser of an ishmarta mikol davara. So here it would seem that it would be somewhat a minatorah isser to go on an adult site, because that it seems from our Gemara that it could be an Issa Daraisa, but most Rishonim will tell you that it's not an Issa Daraisa. It's an Issa Darabanan, and this is like an asmachta. It's a misinterpretation. It's like a remez in the Torah, a hint in the Torah about something like this. Because if you look at the context of that pasuk Nishmat to be called Davara, the Torah is telling you when you go to war, be careful. On all bad things. It has to do with going to war over there. Anyway, so that's the reason why Rab Loza did not want to learn like Rab Pinchas. Rab Loza, why didn't he learn from that pasuk of Rab Nosson? Rab Nosson, my time of the Oma Mahai, when Rab Nosson learned it from Loiselech Rachel, answers the Gemara, he needs Loiselech Rachel, Ahu Azar lebezdin shlo yeherach lezeh v'kash lezeh. The head of the court should not be light to one and more difficult to other. It means, pay favoritism during a court case. So be soft to one and speak harshly to another litigant. So that's what rach and rach lezen, difficult to another. That's a hazara to the court, but nothing to do with making up a false story. Anyway, loy amale edim bayveduni. Let's say the husband did not tell edim, come to say witnesses that my fiance did znus. They just came on their own. The husband didn't call them in. He doesn't give that. He doesn't get malchus, and of course he doesn't have to pay the fine of 100 sloim. And the girl, and the bad edim, we kill them. So that's impossible. That part of the brisa. The girl you kill, and the bad edim you kill. If one of them, if it's good Adim, then you kill the girl. If it's bad Adim, then you don't kill the girl, you kill the Adim. But you never kill both of them. Ella, what the Brisa means, either her or her bad Adim, you bring to the skila. Now, Hama, the whole reason from this Brisa, it seems that he didn't come up with the reason why he's not chayev to pay on Haitzei Shemra is the loy amalahu. He never invited the Edom. They came on their own. But if he told the Edom to come, I forgive the loy agrinu, even though he's not paying them. He's still subject to the Isser of Mitzvah Shemra. So the Isser of Mitzvah Shemra means that the husband went ahead, found the Edom that saw his fiancée did zuznus, and calls him and says, come, you should come to Bezdin and say testimony. Now, puke, but this is not outside. This is not include. Disagrees with Rabbi Yehuda. This is not like Rabbi Yehuda. The Tanya we learned in the Brisa, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Ein chayev achi yiske edom. You're not chayev until you actually pay money for the edom. The husband's not chayev on this case unless he actually hired these edom, and of course they're proven falsely. My Talmud Rabbi Yehuda. What's the reason Rabbi Yehuda? Amar Ababo Asya Sima Sima. He has a pasuk Sima Sima. It says by the Moitzi Shemra V'sam La Alilois Devarim. He made up a baloney story, right? And it says V'sam. He placed on her a libel. Uksiv Hasam, and it says over there Loisi Simon Olav Nershach. When someone borrows money from him, you're not allowed to place on him interest. So Sima is Sima. So we learn from here that the only time he's chayiv in Motzi Shemra is if the husband actually paid money to hire these witnesses. Malahalan mom, and just like by interest means money. Afkan over here in our scenario is only Yechayet, only if you paid money to hire these Eidim. Omar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak said, Rav Yosef Tzidoni Bei Rav Shimon ben Yochai. Rav Yosef Tzidoni said over Brisa that was said in Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai's Beis Medrash, right? Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai had a yeshiva, and this Brisa was said over that Asya Sima Sima, there's a Gzer Shava Sima Sima, that even Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai probably held that you actually have to hire the Eidim. So the Gemara says, Boy Rabbi Yirmiyah. Rabbi Yirmiyah asked the question, Schoram Bakarka Mahu, what happens if instead of hiring them with money, he guaranteed these Eidim a piece of real estate? So a piece of real estate, there's no isser of, if you lend real estate to somebody, so if he pays you interest, that's not included in the isser of ribas. So perhaps if you paid with karka, that wouldn't be included in the Motzi Shemra situation because you're not paying actually cash. You're just hiring them by promising them real estate. Or b'pachos mishava pruta mau. Or if you promise the Eidim, I'm giving you less than a shava pruta, but come testify in court. Or shnehem bepruta. Or you hired both of them, 2 Eidim, but you didn't give each one a penny. You gave both of them 1 pruta. Now, what's the halach in these cases? Boy Rav Ashi asked another question. Hoitzi seimra al hanisuim harishaynim. A guy was married. Let's say a guy was married, got divorced, got married again, right? He didn't do bia with her. He just got married, got divorced, and then remarried her. But now when he's Motzi Shemra on the previous marriage. Does that count? Is he involved in the fine? Or al nisui achiv mao? Let's say a girl fell to him b'yibam. Let's say his brother married somebody. He only did kedushin, and then he died. Now this girl falls to yibam, and he was miyabim her. And then he says, "Oh, when you engaged to my brother, you did znus." So is that considered in the parsha of Motzi Shemra? So only this question the Gemara answers. Pshoit miyachade. One teretz I'm going to answer you. Rabbi Yoni said, as biti nesati leishazeh, this pasuk says that you gave the parents say we gave this man to this person. That means that only when they're dealing with the original husband, but not when he got this woman through yibam. That he's not a yavam is not in the parsha of Motzi Shemra regarding his brother's wife. New Gemara, and we learned in the Gemara. Now we said, and the way we touched up the pasuk in the very beginning is that the husband never actually slept with her. He went, had a wedding with her, but never slept with her. So that is a machlekes between Rabbanan and Reb Lezer B'Yankov. My Rabbanan, my Reb Lezer B'Yankov. What's the story? What's this machlekes Rabbanan Reb Lezer B'Yankov that we mentioned in the previous daf? The Tanya we learned in the Brisa. Kate said Haisar Shemra. What is called giving a bad name to a girl? A man comes to Bezdin for Amar and he says, Pliny. He says to the father, your daughter, like mitzvah the bitcha besulam. I didn't find her to be a virgin. Im yesh edim shezin satachtav, that we find edim that she did znus while after she was engaged. Okay, yesh la ksuba mamana. We give her a ksuba of 100, like half the ksuba of a besulam. So that part, the Gemara right way interrupts. That part of the Brisa makes absolutely no sense. If we find out she did znus after she got engaged to the guy, then we put her to death. She's supposed to be put to death. She was an engaged woman, and she's doing znus. So the Gemara says no. You're right. If we have Adam that she did znus while she was engaged to him, she gets skila. Zinsa mi'ikara. But if she did znus prior to getting engaged to him, so basically she fooled him into thinking that she was a basula, but in reality she was a ba'ula. She had, she slept around before she got engaged to him. Yesh la ksuba mana. She gets at least a ksuba of a mana. She has a ksuba of a mana. That's not called fooling him. This Maisa holds that even if you fooled the guy, we don't let her go out without a ksuba. He has to pay a mana. Nimsa sheshem ra, ein shem ra. Let's say we found out that the husband got the wrong witnesses. The witnesses were false. So then, who like it? The husband gets malchus. That's what he gives 100 selah. But it doesn't matter, bein ball, bein loy ball. It doesn't matter if the husband actually slept with her or not. This is the halacha. Rab Lezer ben Yankov, Rab Lezer ben Yankov said, the whole Isra of Maitzah Shemra is only if he actually slept with the girl at one time. And then he came up with this baloney story the next day. So the Gemara is going to say that the Pesukim sound like that he actually slept with her. And you're going to have to learn the Pesukim according to Rabbanan. It's not easy. Bishlam Rab Lezer ben Yankov that learned the whole story of Maitzah Shamra is talking about what the husband actually slept with her. Hainu d'ksiv. That's why the pasuk says uva leo ve'ekrav eleh. He slept with her. Ve'ekrav eleh. He was close with her. Ela Rabbanan my uva leo ve'ekrav eleh. How do they learn what the pasuk says uva leo ve'ekrav eleh? It doesn't make sense. And says the Gemara, uva leo means not that he had relations with her, because ba'alilas he came up with a libel. The ekrav eleh, or he got close to her, means bidvarim. He had a conversation with her, and in the course of the conversation, he found out that she did nus while she was engaged to him. But he himself, the husband himself, never had relations with her yet. Now, Bishlam and Rabbi Lezer ben Yankov, the psukim makes sense according to Rabbi Lezer ben Yankov. Hainu d'ksiv, that pasuk says, I didn't find your wife to be a virgin, your daughter to be a virgin. I slept with her, and there was no blood coming out of her. That's what Rabbi Lezer ben Yankov says. El Rabbanan, according to Rabbanan, what does it mean? I didn't find that your daughter had basulim. How did they learn shot in the pasuk like that? Answers the Gemara. They'll learn pshat. I did not find to your daughter that edim that will make her a basula. In other words, that to those edim to that will be mazim the edim that I had that said that she did zuznus. So that's why that's how they learn pshat. Bishlam Rabbi Lezer ben Yankov. It makes sense according to Rabbi Lezer ben Yankov. Hainiksiv. The pasuk says that the parent says ve'ele basula viti. Here's the blood of my daughter. El Rabbanam, my ve'ele basula biti. How do they learn pshat in the pasuk that says these are this is my daughter's virginity? In other words, they're proving with blood. How do they prove it? Answers the Gemara, ve'ele kashrei basula biti. What they're saying is that the parents are saying we found edim that were mazim your edim that proved your edim false. So they make our daughter a kosher girl. Bishlama Rabbi Lezer ben Yankov makes sense. Hainu d'ksiv. That's what the pasuk says. Uparsa simla. The parents bring this cloth that shows that she was a basula. Ella Rabbanan, but according to Rabbanan, my uparsu simla. What does it mean that they bring the cloth that shows he never slept with her? Parsu masha samla. They spread it out on the table like a cloth. And Bezdin has to determine who's telling the truth. The husband's witnesses and the parents' witnesses. They try to clarify the thing like a brand new suit, that was unwear. They try to get to make sure that things are clarified, actually who is telling the truth. Rabbi Lezer ben Yankov says the pasuk Dvarim Kesubos that the pasuk is saying that they actually bring the bedika cloth, the little cloth with that they slept on that shows that there was blood there. Simla mamish, they actually bring the cloth to prove that their girl was a basula. So it's a machlokes in how to learn the psukim. Rabbi Lezer ben Yankov said he actually slept with her, and the next morning he says, "Oh, I didn't find that she was a virgin. I didn't see blood." According to Chachamim, he never actually slept with her. And they have a whole way to learn pshat in the psukim that what basically he brought edim that she was mizana before they got married and after she got engaged. And the parents are bringing other edim to be mazim his edim. Shalach Nugamar, Shalach Rabbi Yitzchak bar Rav Yaakov bar Meguim Mishmed Rabbi Yochanan. He sent a message. He sent a teaching in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Yitzchak. Let's say let's take an arayas, an ant. You're not allowed to sleep with your ant, right? It doesn't matter whether you sleep normally or you go from the back. It's still you get malchus, einchin, or whatever misa, or whatever you get for that. The Torah doesn't differentiate between a normal bia and a non-normal bia. When it comes to Maitzah Shemra, Chilek. Eine chayiv at sheyivol shloi kedarka v'yoytzi shem kedarka. The chiyuv of Moitzi Shamra means that the husband did bia shloi kedarka in the non-normal fashion. And then when he's Moitzi Shemra, he's saying that she did znus after she got engaged to him in the normal fashion. So the Gemara doesn't understand that kind of a teaching. Come on. According to who did he say this teaching? Ikar Rabbanan. If it's according to Rabbanan, the Rabbanan don't require that the husband do bia at all with her. Afagav the loibal. It means that even if he did not have any relations, that there's still the obligation of Moitzi Shemra. But if you're going according to Rabbi Lezer ben Yankov, we go to Ahmed Beis. It means that he was boiled in the normal fashion, because since you're reading the pasuk the way it is, the way Rabbi Lezer ben Yankov reads the pasuk, it means that the husband had normal relations, and he now looking for blood on the cloth, and he doesn't find it. So what is this teaching saying? Ella sholach Rav Kahana Rav Kahana sent over the teaching the name of Rabbi Yochanan in the proper way that makes perfect sense. It's going according to Rabbi Lezer ben Yankov. The husband's not chayiv until he does a normal bia, and then he finds there's no blood on the cloth. And he was Moitzi Shemra, saying that she did znus, not shloi kedarka in the non-normal fashion, but she did znus after they were engaged in the normal fashions. People saw that she did znus with so-and-so in the normal fashion. That's Moitzi Shemra. If they're proven false, they have to say that. New Mishnah. We know if a person has a daughter, he has rights to the daughter. Ha'av zakoi bebitoi. A man has a daughter, he has the rights for his daughter, b'kedusha, in her kedushin, b'kesef. That means if someone gives money to betroth his daughter, he gets to keep the money. Bishtar, if someone writes a shtar that he writes a shtar for his daughter that he wants to marry her, he gets to keep the paper. What's he going to do with a piece of paper? Probably he could use it to stuff his wine bottle with it. But the paper belongs to the father. Ubabia, and he has the right to give her over to bia, to somebody to mimkadesh her, by sleeping with her, and he pays money to the father. Listen, I want to have the first right to sleep with your daughter and betroth her, and the father gets to keep that money. Now, the din is, by the way, the bia, you can only give a girl over to bia, your daughter over to bia, only after she's 3 years old. But a person, if the first day that the daughter is born, you could be mekabel kesef kedushin on her behalf. So it is a big difference between kesef and shtar and bia. That said, of course, this is not in practice. This is in theory. How we require that at least she should be an adult somewhat, that she should agree to this marriage, not that the father should throw her into a marriage this way. But in the strict Torah way, he gets the rights to put her into a marriage right then and there, right when she's born. Zakai, he has the rights b'mitziasa. If she finds something, she wins the lottery, I guess. He gets it. If she earns earnings, if she's like a counselor in camp, he gets it. And he can nullify those promises that she made after she's 12 years old, because if she made a promise when she's 7, it doesn't even count as a promise. It means after she's 12. Gita, and he accepts the get. That means if she's getting, let's say she only had Erison, she didn't get married yet. So then he could accept the piece of paper that's her get, and he keeps the paper again to use it as a wine bottle stuffing. And if she owns property, he doesn't get the rental rights. How does she own property as 7-year-old? It's talking about she had a mother. She was born. She had a mother, and her mother died, and her mother had a father who died also, and she's the only surviving daughter from that side of the family. And so she inherited from behalf of her mother's side a piece of property. So the din is that the father has no rights to the rental of that property. He has to put it in escrow, the rental money coming in on her behalf. Nises, but if she actually got married, so now the husband takes over what the father used to do. Yes, all of Habal, the husband has more rights. The husband has the right to eat the rental income from that property, because a husband has more rights to her. And the reason is that he eats the rental rights is because he's obligated to give her food and to redeem her if she's, kidnapped. So therefore, he has more rights than the father. The chayav, he has to feed her. If she got kidnapped, he has to redeem her. And he has to bury her. Now, if she got engaged, right? If she got engaged, then it's under the father to bury her. But here we're talking about she actually went to the chuppah and she got married to somebody. So then the husband has to bury her, but he doesn't have to make it so nice of a burial. He doesn't have to make such a nice funeral. Rabbi Yehuda says, "I feel oni should be Yisrael, even if he's the poorest Jew. But in the custom in his family is to make a nice funeral. Then they should have no less than 2 instruments, 2 flutes at this funeral. And somebody giving a loud. You hire somebody to make people cry." So that's what they used to do. So again, if it was the minig in his family is to have such a thing, she has to. Then you have to do it on behalf of the lady too. You have to make a nice funeral for her. That is the halacha according to Rabbi Yehuda. You don't say, "Oh, she's dead now." We go after her family. No, she was married to this guy. They go after his family. Gemara asks the question: how do you know a father has the right to get a kedushin from to take the money of the kedushin, to keep the money of kedushin if someone betroths his daughter? Rabbi Yehuda, Krav, pasuk says when a person sold a girl to a master, to an eved as a maid, and normally she's supposed to be sold for 6 years, but let's say after 3 years she displays hairs of puberty. So the Torah says, she walks out and she's no more a slave. So let's say she hit the number 12 mark and she showed 2 hairs of puberty. Then she walks out and she doesn't have to give him any money, even though he paid a lot of money for this maid. So we darshan, there's no money given to this master when she leaves, but there is money when she leaves another master. Who's her other master? It means that if she was not sold as a maid, but actually she stayed in her father's house, when she leaves her father's house because she's going to marry somebody else, money that is supposed to be given as part of the kedushin is given to the father. And that's where he says, "Ein kesef l'adazeh." You don't give money to this master, but you give it to her other master, her father. So the Gemara says, "Ve'ein melidida." Maybe the Chumash says that there's no money in this situation, but you give the money to her. So the Gemara says, no, but hashta avia mekabel kedusha. We learned elsewhere that the father can decide who she should get married. He decides that I gave my daughter to this man. Would it make sense that she could keep the money? He's the one deciding who she's marrying, so therefore he gets to keep the money. So the Gemara asks, yes, a girl that's under bas mitzvah, yes, I can see that the father has the right to decide who she gets married to, and he has the right to keep the money. The les layat, she has no hand of her own. Aval the islayat, but a nara, she has a hand. She's already somewhat mature. Maybe she can decide who she gets married to, and she can take the money belonging to that. Amakra, the pasuk says, "Benurel beisavia." When she's a teenager, she's in her father's house. Kol shevach neurim lavia. Any benefit that happens to a 12-year-old girl belongs to her father. So if there's money coming in on behalf of kedushin, then it belongs to the father. So the Gemara says, so Benurel beisavia teaches you that anything that happens to a 12-year-old girl, any benefit, any profits that a 12-year-old girl makes belongs to the father. Rab said, asked the question, how do you know the salary of a girl belongs to her father? Because the pasuk says, the Torah gives the right to a man to sell his daughter for an amma, a maid. And the pasuk, we know the pasuk is talking about amma. So why does the Torah say daughter and amma together? So the pasuk says, "Ma amma masi rabba." Just like a maid, her wages belong to her master. Right, the wages belong to her master. Bas masi. So also a daughter, the wages belong to her father. So what's the pasuk the Rav used. But we asked the question, why does he need a new pasuk for that? Tepek lay, we should know from another pasuk, binu rel beisavia, that any time she's a teenager, any benefit she has belongs to her father. Ella, the reason why you don't learn from Benurel Beisavia is Bahahu Bahafaris Nadarmuk said. That pasuk is giving the right to the father to nullify any vows, but not any other rights. So that's why I need another pasuk of Miyimkar Ish is Bite La'ama. Let's learn that just like the father has a right to nullify vows, he should also have a right to keep any financial gain she makes. The answer is no. For money, the financial gains from the rights that the father has to nullify vows, which is Isser, we don't learn one from another. So we need separate psukim. Let us learn from Knas. But the Torah says that anytime there's a fine, a punitive fine, it belongs to the father. So let's learn all financial gains belong to the father. The answer is financial gain, right, that we don't learn from punitive gains. If the Torah says a knas, it's a fine. Maybe it's the whole idea of a fine is a novelty, is a chidush. So therefore, maybe the Torah says only that belongs to the father. But a financial wage, let's say a salary that she's getting, maybe it doesn't belong from the father. That's why I need extra psukim. Do you want to say the fact that the Torah gives the embarrassment and the loss of value to the father in a case of oinus and mafata, we learned so much. That means that those are special payments that belong to the father because the father has the right to embarrass his daughter or cause a loss to his daughter because he can really decide who she can get married. But that's basis of begam. But how do I know any other financial gain belong to the father? That's why I need that kiyim keish is bitay la'ama. So the question over here is back to square one. I only know wages belong to the father, but how do I know that the kes of kedushin, that a man gives over his wife, his daughter to somebody for marriage? How do you know that money that he's supposed to pay for the girl to be mekadesh her belongs to the father? The Gemara says it makes sense. The chimamait rachmana yitziyat kavasei kamamayit. The Torah is saying that there's no money when he leaves the master. Now, if there would have been money, let's say she's leaving early, the master paid a lot of money for her, and she's leaving because she all of a sudden hair grew from her, and she's proving she's over puberty. So the Torah says she goes free. But had there been money, she would be required to, if she was going to go free, she would have to bail herself out from the master by paying over and above what he paid for her. So therefore, who would you pay that money? To the master. So also, when the Torah says, when there is another scenario, when money is being paid, it belongs to her master, which is her father. So the Gemara says, we can't compare leaving a master to leaving her father. When a girl who's sold as a maid leaves her master, she leaves his jurisdiction completely. He has no more jurisdiction over her once she leaves him. But when you leave the father, you got engaged. The truth is that in order for her, she's not really totally left the jurisdiction of the father. It's because in order for her to leave the jurisdiction of her father, she has to go to chuppah. He has to go to a wedding. She has to go to a wedding because still her wages and other things her wages belong to the father. She didn't totally leave the father. So what kind of a drasha? There's no kesef when she leaves this master, but when she leaves another master, she gets money, but she's not leaving the father completely as long as she didn't go to the actually chuppah. And says the Gemara, when she gets engaged, she actually left her father's domain. In other words, most of the time, in order for her to leave their father's domain, most of the rights, she has to actually have a wedding. She has to have the chuppah. But in some parts, she actually goes out of the father's domain when she just gets engaged. Because as long as she was a katana under bas mitzvah, the father can nullify any vows. But once she gets engaged, the father now has a partner, the Tanan. We learned in the Mishnah, now Amaraza, a girl who's 12 years old that got engaged, in order to nullify a vow, both the father and the husband have to agree to nullify the vow. So since now the father has another partner here, it's as if he left, as if she's leaving his jurisdiction. So basically, from here we know that bottom line here is that when a father has the right to marry off his daughter, not only is it the right to marry off his daughter, or his 12-year-old daughter, but the money of the kedushin, the money of the kedushin actually belongs to him. It actually belongs to him. Not only when he's marrying her off as a 10-year-old, but even if she's the one deciding to get married. Let's say she's 12 years old, over bas mitzvah, the money of the kedushin belongs to the father. Okay, we're going to discuss tomorrow, Be'ez Hashem, continuing to discuss the rights of the father.